everyone. Welcome to the January meeting of the Annapolis Education Commission. Hope that everyone is staying safe and warm out there. The weather is interesting, to say the least. My name is Laura Booth. I am the chair of this commission, and we have a busy agenda today, and we have a couple of folks coming and going, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm going to race through our roll call really quickly. And start off with Ward 1, we have Fish. Oops. Sorry, I have two screens here and I cannot figure out how to get them to appear side by side. No. All right. Ward 2 is vacant. Ward 3 is Enid. Is Enid on? Okay, Enid said she had another meeting, but she would be by as quickly as she could. Ward 4, we have Tara.
Here.
Excellent. Ward 5, we have India.
Here.
Ward 6, we have Corey. I know Corey was not feeling well today, so I'm not sure if she was able to join us. All right, I'm gonna drag around and look to see who else is on our screen. Ward 7 is me. Ward 8 is Jess. There we go. Oops, sorry. I should not be allowed to use a computer today because it ain't working for me. All right. Okay, and then we have our at-large members. We have Pam.
Here.
Saw you. All right. We have Odessa. Is she online? No, I did not see her. We have Grace. No. And oops, and then we have Samantha.
Here.
Yes. All right. And then do we have our alderman on board? Sorry, I can't see Smith Brown as alderman.
I'm here.
Oops. All right. We have two aldermen. All right. We have Alderman Smith Brown, who is our representative on the city council, and then we also have Alderman Huntley, who is coming to talk to us about the budget. So, thank you both for coming and joining us this evening.
Yes, honored to represent. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. All right. Sorry, I'm really struggling to see folks on the screen today. All right. So that is everyone. Did I miss it? I got everybody for roll call, right? Yes.
And I'll also say good evening, everyone.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I didn't see you on there.
You're okay. You're okay. I was gonna catch you anyway.
Yes. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Rocio Ramirez Smith. I am the Hispanic liaison for our city. I am here because I am going to be helping as a city staff for the Education Commission from now on, and happy to help with anything that you need and to stay connected with all of you.
All right. Wonderful. We are very grateful to have you. Thank you. And I apologize. Everyone's keeps bopping around on my screen here. So thank you for coming and thank you for all that you do to help us with all that we do. All right, let me find the agenda, which I had up and now have lost again. All right. All right, this is our agenda for this evening. Is anyone online, Josh, for public comment? Public testimony?
No, ma'am. There's nobody in the attendees right now.
We have not gotten any emails as well. So our agenda for this evening is as such. We have basically our evening will be devoted to the budget. We have Alderman Huntley is with us to talk about the city budget, and then Dr. Tobin will be joining us later in this evening. She has a very limited time window, so she'll be on for a little bit to talk to us a little bit about the school system budget. Is there anyone else? Does anyone else? Oh, Jess. I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I just had a question. Speaking of that, it seems like Dr. Tobin is no longer able to make the Wednesday meetings regularly or for more than just a few minutes at a time. So I don't know if that's something we want to discuss. It's a new year. Do we want to discuss maybe we need to move it to a time because having her here and having her participating, especially since no one else from the school system participates anymore, I think is really important. And I think with without having at least her here, if not other people from the school system. We're sort of just talking in a vacuum. And I don't know if that can be added to the agenda or if we want to discuss that at some point.
We can discuss it. I know we're always limited by when the city has time slots, because we've done this now 2 or 3 times, and we always come back to this day as being the only time that the city can accommodate us and all the members of the commission are available. But we can definitely discuss it again. We can put together a poll or something and send that around. Does anyone have any other additions or adjustments to the agenda for this evening? All right, any objections to or I guess, so I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I
So
move
moved.
to appoint.
I second Pam's motion.
Oh, thanks,
Excellent.
Fish.
Thank you, Fish. All right, agenda is approved. Or any objections? Okay, agenda is approved. We have minutes for our December meeting, which Corey prepared and were sent out. Did anyone have any revision or comments to make on the minutes? Okay, can I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Pam. Second?
Seconded.
Oops, thank you. Was that Samantha?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Heard your voice,
Okay.
could not see anything. All right, perfect. Any objections? Great. Okay, minutes are approved. We have no public testimony. So let's go right into our the city budget priorities. And I will turn the floor over to Alderman Huntley. Thank you. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Thank you for being with us this evening. We've talked a lot about things over the past few months. Transportation comes up a lot, but as does before and after care and other recreational opportunities for Annapolis students. So we have talked a great deal about the budget, but we would really appreciate your feedback and guidance on areas in which we can advocate or things that that we should be aware of.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me. So I'll start with just a little bit of an overview of how the city makes its budget and then drill into what I know some of the aldermen are talking about and then try and respond to what you guys have been looking at. And I may also be on a walk for part of it, just fair warning. But to start off, the city budget process is really ongoing right now. It almost feels like as soon as you get one done, you start another one. So the city operates on a fiscal year from the beginning of July through the end of June. So we're currently in fiscal year 2026, which started on July 1st, 2025. The council has to pass that budget no later than early June, because we have to give it to the state and they have to do all sorts of machinations about like how we set our tax rate and that sort of thing. So point being, the initial conversations really start probably in November with department directors thinking about what they are going to prioritize as requests, what they think they need, and then working on those with the mayor's office. Of course, this year we had administration transition, so I think a lot of that was probably more starting in December. But I know that was one of the things that Mayor Littman has talked about, drinking from a fire hose when he came in. That there was immediately this, all right, we got to be working on the budget for next year. So, one thing that we started doing last year. And for anybody who doesn't know, the reason why I'm here is because I chair the finance committee, which reviews the budget and any changes to it. So one thing we started doing last year when I joined the council was, for the first time, we really tried to bring the aldermen into the conversation a little bit earlier, with the idea that in past we haven't done that, and it's led to just having so many amendments at the end that overload the budget staff, that lead to, frankly, things not getting planned as well as they could. So the idea was, rather than the aldermen expressing their priorities at the end of the process, let's have them express it at closer to the beginning, so that then the mayor is able to incorporate those when he releases his budget, which he will do at the beginning of April. And again, that process of crafting that budget is underway right now. It's important also to know there's really two budgets that get released by the mayor. One is the operating budget and one is the capital budget. This past year, the operating budget was around $200 million and the capital budget was around $30 million. Mind you, there is a little bit of overlap between those two in that if you were to ask what is the total budget, it's not 200 plus 30, there's some overlap, both within the operating budget and then between the operating budget and the capital budget. The budget gets organized by departments. And so what I've heard from you guys is that some of the ones you're going to be most interested in are Rec and Parks, which handles aftercare, and the transportation department. So as those, I'm sorry, my dog is barking in the back. As those requests are getting made to the department directors, to the administration, now I think it's the time you want to be talking about that to those members of city staff and also to your alderman. Because what we just did was it really just last week? I think it was a meeting, a work session for the city council where we could convey some of our initial priorities, recognizing that especially because there are plenty of folks who are new, these are not necessarily your absolute final, these are all the things that matter to me, but expressing what you're thinking about. So for me, my top three priorities that I brought forward were improving our infrastructure, reducing the tax rate if we can, because I don't mean to get into too far into budgetary details, but reducing the tax rate as assessments rise. And then the third one was this broad area of customer service, which we know the new mayor has really campaigned on. I will tell you, out of that meeting, there was not a whole lot of people talking about aftercare. I don't remember that coming up as a priority that anyone particularly listed, although maybe there were certainly some general things about taking care of our youth and supporting them. Transportation, though, did get talked about a fair amount, both in terms of certainly trying to make our roads safer for pedestrians, for drivers, but also our transit system to be just generally improved. So one of the things that I think we'll end up likely seeing, I don't want to speak for him, but I think it's a good chance that we'll see in the mayor's budget, is a position within the Department of Transportation that's focused on increasing ridership, really. Something sort of like a business manager or however you want to call it, business manager, marketing manager, that sort of thing. Because there are so many situations where, for instance, our bus stops don't have maps of where the buses go on them. There are these things that we know if we looked at our system through the lens of how do we increase ridership, we need somebody who's really dedicated to asking that question every day. I think that could really be a great position to add or to swap around some other position to fill that role. The other thing along those same lines is that the Transportation Advisory Board, so your guys' equivalent, is working on a recommendation to put in that position. So I think that'll kind of carry some additional weight. You all probably know about the on-demand service, Go Time. That is something that I expect to be continued in this budget. So, like I said, we're at this part right now where department directors are putting together their requests. The city council is talking about its request. The mayor has to create a budget. He'll release that on April, and I forget the exact date, but early April. At which point the finance committee will then have 2 or 3 weeks of hearings where we go through each one of those departments line by line, try and understand any opportunities for efficiencies and any places where maybe they really need some more. One of the questions that my former colleague, former Alderwoman Finlayson, would always ask is, Director, is there any request you made to the administration that were not included here? And that she felt like that was a helpful question to ask because it gives us the opportunity to see maybe there's something that the mayor did include from a different department that we don't think is as worthy as this thing that the mayor didn't include from the first department. So we go through that process. At that point, then all of the members of the council, but especially members of the finance committee, put together amendments for the budget. So this is where you say, I want to spend this money, or I don't want to spend this money. And there's no requirement that those be explicitly paid for. You have to figure out some way to do it because the city overall is required to have a balanced budget. But I always try and have mine be, if I'm asking for money for something, I want to say where I'm willing to cut it from. I think that's important. So those get brought forward. Aldermen work with the staff on getting them fully drafted. And then we have a marathon day where we vote on all the budget amendments. Last year, there were 61 budget amendments, and it took us 9 hours to get through them. So that was really something else. We did have a brief break for lunch in there. And then, so that's a whole day meeting. And then typically the following week will be when the council actually votes on the budget. So I believe, if I remember correctly, last year, that was June 9th was when we voted on finalizing the budget. So that's an overview of the process. That's a little bit of what I've heard about priorities from council members. I think you're going to hear a lot on that sort of infrastructure side, but that does include pedestrian infrastructure, making sure that it's safe for kids to walk to school, and that sort of theme of customer service. So those are some of the most broadly shared priorities that I've heard from members of the council. So I hope that gives you something of an overview. I hope I touched on the things you're interested in, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so
Harry,
much.
just to start, sorry, Laura, did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
I know a priority that a lot of us on the commission have is safe routes to school through multiple modes. You know, I remember, and I appreciate this in this storm, that we came to you last year because this time last year we had a concern that sidewalks weren't getting cleared and kids couldn't walk to school, and you put in some legislation that helped get, theoretically, when they're not ice, we'll get sidewalks cleared faster. So all to say, like, when we think about, you know, the investments in pedestrian infrastructure, complete streets, can you talk a little more about what's being done, and specifically, you know, what's being done in the neighborhoods around our public schools where kids might need to walk to?
Yeah. I think that's a multifaceted question, right? Because one of the things I tried to do last year was really rally the council around this idea of sidewalks as a budget priority. And it turns out that people had very different ideas of what sidewalks meant. Some people meant new sidewalks. Some people meant fix the sidewalks that we have. Even where people agreed we needed new sidewalks, people would disagree on which one of the places we should prioritize. And then what you're talking about is almost a whole separate thing, Fish, of clearing sidewalks. But I think to at least speak to the first two of those, new sidewalks and fixing sidewalks, we have a couple places that you'll want to look will be in the capital budget. First, there's one called General Sidewalks, which is what we use for repairing sidewalks. It's really that simple. And then there will be individual projects for putting in new sidewalks. Like, for instance, Cedar Park Road is one that we consistently have been working to get sidewalks put in there. I think there's another one on either on Hilltop or on Spa near Hilltop. So looking at that capital budget for where those routes are, that's really what you want to look at.
To follow up with that, I know this would be more operating budget, but I know there was a big discussion about crossing guards a couple of years ago, that their pay is not on par with like their county counterparts, and really they become difficult positions to staff because they are so low paying. And then what happens is then the police get pulled if we don't have a crossing guard at that intersection. Then the city police, who obviously get paid a whole lot more an hour, get pulled to watch to take care of those intersections, which then also leaves us short for allowing them to deal with the things that the police are supposed to be dealing with. So do you know off the top of your head, or can you tell us, has there been any discussion about pay for crossing guards?
Excuse me. I have not heard any discussion on that yet, but I appreciate you flagging it as something that if the administration is really talking about making sure that we can fully staff our police department, then making sure that we're fully staffing our crossing guards might be a crucial piece of that.
One of the things we're discussing the school system budget a little later this evening, but one of the things that has been brought up is that transportation costs continue to grow sort of astronomically. So there is some discussion about perhaps relieving the school system budget by increasing walking radiuses, meaning that kids would have to walk a longer distance, either to get to a bus stop or to a school, which then means that the roads, the radius of roads that we have to consider for sidewalks to school and routes to school would then have to be basically larger. So we would need more crossing guards. We would need things like that. So is that something that that anyone is in discussion in communication with the school system on? Because it's one of those things where you kind of both have to move at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I would expect that if the school system is considering that they would want to come to the city and talk about how to make sure that there's adequate funding for that. Because you wouldn't just be able to do it overnight. And it's definitely kind of you could move in parallel. I'd almost say it's like a catch-22 where they can't do it if we don't do it.
Yeah.
Right. So Harry, I had my hand raised because that's what I wanted to bring up. I feel like in a lot of the conversations that are having, particularly the things that affect, there's always this sort of, well, schools aren't the city's job, and then this, the things that happen here in terms of transportation, in terms of public transportation, in terms of pedestrian transportation, et cetera, the school system's response is, well, that's the city's job, not our job, right? So there's a sort of gap. And I know you're talking specifically about the budget, but in general, like as you just said, right, you would expect that the school system would do that. I would hope that the school system would do that. However, having been in this conversation now for over a decade, I would not expect that the school system is going to do that, because the school system generally does not. That's just not how the school system works. Just like when the city was doing the transportation plan last year, and redoing, the whole bus transportation plan, which impacts budgeting and everything else, they didn't speak to the school system about their needs or about, where any gaps are or that type of thing. It's generally sort of this lost gap between the two entities. And so I would hope that going forward, if you could please try to keep an eye on that when you're on the finance committee, when you're having these discussions. And all of us here on the commission are more than happy to come and speak to any of the issues. Some of us have more experience in some than in the other ones, but it is and like Laura said, we were talking about this earlier today. That the school system, Dr. Bedell has said we may need to increase walking distances. Well, that's a big deal if we are increasing walking distances in the city of Annapolis, right? And it's not just on the major roads like the ones that you were talking about, but it's even on the smaller ones. I took a picture the other day before the storm, and then I got wrapped up in the storm, of Park Avenue in Eastport, which is a very small 1-block little road, but it is a perfect example of the pedestrian issue in Annapolis, because literally, and particularly in the more pedestrian areas in the city, like in Eastport, where, for example, kids are required to walk to school within a mile of the elementary school, except if you're in pre-K and first grade, I think, then it's half a mile. And if you're in middle school right now, it's 1.5 miles. On Park Avenue, there is like a house with a sidewalk, and then a house with no sidewalk, and then a house with a sidewalk, and then a house with no sidewalk. And I was thinking about it with this whole shoveling conversation with the snow and everything. That whole conversation and that fee, as you're well aware from last year, came up a lot because of, along Tyler Avenue where nothing was shoveled, and along Forest Drive where nothing was shoveled. But in Eastport, for example, you have people that are going out and they're diligently shoveling the sidewalk in front of their house so that people can walk. But then the house next to them isn't shoveling because they don't have a sidewalk, right? And so that is a budgetary issue, but it's also that can be handled also on a legislative issue, right? There could be laws that say, if you're going to renovate your house, you have to put a sidewalk in, or there's multiple ways that those sort of gaps can be handled that aren't necessarily a huge budgetary impact, but will make a huge pedestrian impact, particularly with our students who most of the time walk in the streets. And then there's other things that come up that for years, for example, I have been advocating, I have a freshman in college. I have been advocating since my freshman in college was in kindergarten for a pedestrian signal at 7th and 6th Street. I have put it into every version of the Report It system in the last 14 years. So many different ways. I've had conversations with people who are now retired because we don't have a pedestrian signal at 6th and 7th. That is the corner of Eastport Elementary School. It is also the corner where everybody walks to St. Mary's. So it's not just the public schools, it's also the private school. It's also the corner where everybody coming from downtown crosses that intersection. Those types of budgetary things, when you request them, they just see, or those types of projects seem to go into a black hole. At one point, I was told that they couldn't put a pedestrian signal there because the priority was to upgrade the already existing pedestrian signals on Church Circle. And when I pointed out that those ones exist and are functional, they're just old, and these do not exist, and this is an elementary school corner where lots of students walk through, the response I got from the city was, well, lots of elderly people use Church Circle, and that was sort of the end of the story. But those are all parts of the little things that affect our students and our families on a daily basis, and really make a difference, between families feeling safe enough for their kids to walk to school or not walk to school. And then, when it comes to budgets affecting on the county and the city and the AACPS side, it all works together. So anyway, all of that to said, please make sure that you are also pulling us as a commission in, because that's what we're here for, right? We're here to, you don't have kids who walk in Eastport. I do. And so, I can say, look, this is an issue that I've known about, that we've talked about. We also have been talking about a stop sign here or a crosswalk here, these types of things, which we can sort of speak to the council, and otherwise are sort of not going anywhere, within our own wards, because that's what we've been commissioned to do.
Yeah, Jess, first of all, just absolutely agree with everything you said. I want to make sure that we do use the commissioner's research. I want to hear from you guys about what you think we should be putting money towards. I think you also made a really salient point that this frequently is not just a budget issue. Frequently, it's a legislative issue. And we do have some provisions around requiring people to put in sidewalks if they don't exist when you do a renovation of some size. I know it's funny, there's like almost no places in Ward 1 that don't have sidewalks, but one of the very few places that didn't, they did a pretty big renovation and they had to put in a sidewalk. And it ended up being a really big cost relative to the size of the project, but it's neither here nor there. So we do have some of that. In terms of the ones you're talking about, because that's really prevalent in Eastport, where you'll have one sidewalk and then no sidewalk and then another sidewalk. Alderman Thorpe, I think, it's been looking into what we do legislatively to make it easier for the city to go and put those in. Or maybe it's not even legislative. Maybe it's just administrative to address that. And then the last thing I want to say in response that really frustrates me and so many members of the council is you were talking about that traffic signal. That's exactly the kind of thing that I have dealt with as well. And I haven't dealt with it for quite as long as you have. But I've seen it in action where even if the money is there, it doesn't get done. I have a place actually just down the street from my house where we've been trying to get a traffic signal put in for a year now. I know the money is available and it's stuck in procurement or stuck in design or stuck in. And so last year, something the council funded in the budget was a position to do basically follow up. Basically, when we say in the budget or in a law, we want this thing to happen, does it actually happen? And if not, what do we need to change so it can? That position is out to get hired right now. So if anybody knows any good people who are interested in working on legislation and really making city government work, that would be very exciting to encourage them to apply for that.
Hey, Jess,
But thank you.
Yes.
I bet shit starts getting done real fast around there. Harry, thank you for that, Harry.
Does anyone else have questions for Alderman Huntley?
Harry, do you know off the top of your head and totally understand if you don't, because we can always go ask this ourselves, but the Parks and Rec, what they asked for budget modifications for? Because I don't have a good sense of what is you know, what kind of resources there are to play with in the budget. But I do think, I don't want to speak for the whole commission here, but I think that like knowing the childcare needs we have, like I would not want to see a bunch of money go to Parks and Rec for like facility upgrades versus trying to add more slots, especially at I think it's Hillsmere where the program's really undersubscribed.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, Fish, that it can be hard to shift money between the capital and operating budgets. But
Yep,
yes,
true.
I take your point that we don't necessarily want to see Parks and Rec throw money at things that would be nice to have when we know how dire the situation is with people needing childcare. And that was something that we did in last year's budget was Parks and Rec was going to start a football program. And we looked around and we said, there are already football programs operating that are run by nonprofits. We don't necessarily need to put, I think it was $43,000 of city money towards that when we could put it towards more after school programs. And that's what we ended up transferring it to.
Okay, that's great.
So that's a thing for us to pay attention to then, because you guys already have the precedent of saying we're going to shift it from here to here. That's cool.
And I think, another example of that might be, this summer or the summer before last, when, for example, the housing authority was having problems getting their pool in operation, and the city came in and said, hey, we're going to take it over and run it as a city pool. A perfect example of that would be the community center in Eastport, right? The community center in Eastport is not being utilized in any way that's beneficial at any scale for the community at large. And also we have the need for after school location, after school care locations, and various programming locations and other things. The city has a need for those types of things. That maybe that type of thing, right? Seeing what type of of availabilities are within the city that are not being utilized, and then working with those entities to try to make them utilized. So, maybe the Eastport Community Center becomes sort of like the Stanton Center, in that the city is now running it and providing programming there, or allowing programming to happen there that can't fit into Pip Moyer, and utilizes that space, right? There are a lot of ways to make that happen. So, I really appreciate all you're doing. And then the only other thing I would like to say is that when you're doing your public hearings and your, outreach for the budget and everything, I know organizations like Ward One and the Eastport Civic Association and some of those other organizations have a lot of say, and they have a lot of really great things to say. But remember that for most of those, they don't really meet with or speak to the younger families in our community. They don't, you go to an Eastport Civic Association meeting, and I go to all of them, or as many of them as I can. And I am by far one of the youngest people in that meeting, and I'm not very young. And so, making sure that there's outreach being done to the families and to the younger residents of the city. I don't mean like necessarily the 21 and under, but to, particularly to our young parents who don't have the time to participate in those types of meetings, but still their voice is really important. That's
I so appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. One of the, I'll call it formative experiences I had in this role was one of the first things I did was went to this Ward One and Historic Annapolis meeting about the City Dock project. And they asked something along the lines of how many people are excited for a splash pad, and like people practically booed the speaker off the stage. And then when you go talk to people who have kids, every single person who has a kid who I have ever spoken to is over the moon excited for that splash pad. And it's a good example of, some groups are just not representative of everybody as a whole. But also you reminded me of a couple of different things I want to just throw out, and then I can step out because I know you guys have a bunch of other people to talk to tonight. One was, this is not happening this year because obviously the administration is just getting started, but I know the administration is already looking to, in the fall, like in the sort of October, November timeframe, have town halls specifically about the budget to bring out everybody. And that will, they're still working on finding the locations for those and getting it scheduled, but that is a plan that's going to happen going forward. And then just, Jess, you reminded me of so many things. A couple of ones I wanted to touch on. Alderwoman Conti made some of her priorities were around the Eastport Civic Center, both just some facilities upgrades and then also providing stipends that could help people who are in public housing go and just do a little more around the community of all different things. Some, whether that's cleaning up trash or babysitting, or she had a couple different ideas for it. But that was one of her top priorities. And then the last thing is one of Alderman Schnellmeyer's priorities that something Fish said reminded me of, which is the Children and Family Success Grant. And that is to help families afford childcare. At the same time, Alderman Schnellmeyer is bringing forward a separate bill that's giving a tax credit to childcare facilities. So definitely something that he in particular is paying attention to. But in this case, I think we're talking about, pre-K, before school age, but certainly that is a real need for folks. And I know he's going to keep working on how do we improve the supply side of that too, right? Like a big part of the problem is there aren't enough facilities. So if we give people money, it's helpful to some people, but we don't want to just lead to a scenario where we're just subsidizing it and driving up the cost further because there's a constrained supply. So those are just a bunch of priorities that other people have brought up I thought you all would like to be aware of.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And one last question from Rocio.
I wanted to add to that the Recs and Parks actually had a program that they were trying to do, an after-school program. They only needed 10 kids to attend, and it was going to be transportation provided, only $300 a month. They couldn't even get 10 kids from the Eastport Elementary. So there are programs that are happening, but just not people that are not taking advantage of them, or maybe people just don't know about them. Just in case they are still trying to find, even though the registration was only till January 5th, they extended it, and Alderman Huntley knows about this. He was following the thread that they're trying to find kids so they can still have this program. They made a huge effort with the county schools to be able to provide transportation. So we would really like to see this happening. And it goes back to what you were saying, that the Recs and Parks are having programs for children, and we just want to see people taking advantage of them.
I can speak to that particular program. The county did provide, ACPS, not the county, was going to provide transportation to the program. However, what they weren't doing was providing transportation home from the program. And a lot of our families in Eastport don't have personal transportation. So that is why school age childcare, SAYC or whatever, SAC in the schools is so important, because it's within the community. And if it's a walkable community, it's in the walkable place. So it may not seem like it's very far to go from President Street to Pitt Moyer to pick up your kid at the end of the day or at the end of your shift or whatever. But for a lot of these families, it is, right. And so when Latchkey was offered at Eastport, those kids could walk home at the end of the day. They can't walk home from Pitt Moyer Rec Center, which is actually one of the reasons that I think looking at, for example, the Eastport Community Center as an aftercare place is so important, because it is walkable for so many of our families, right? So on Thursdays, Eastport United Methodist Church offers this great program, and kids can walk to and from that program. And it's a 2-hour program that functions as both robotics and an art program with Maryland Hall, but also as a form of childcare, and because the kids are there for 2 hours, but the kids can walk there. So that's, the program at Pitt Moyer was fantastic, but the transportation home from that program was a huge constraint. The school system, the PTA, everyone did a huge job trying to get the word out, but with the cost plus the transportation, it just made it so much more difficult. So that's just something, to keep in mind. And that's why trying to find a child care program that's in the community, or a location that's in the community, whether it's at the elementary school or at another similar place, is so important. That's why Stanton Center works so well, because it's close to all those families near the Stanton Center, et cetera.
All right. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions for Alderman Huntley? Thank you. Dr. Tobin has joined us. I know she has a hard stop at 7, so I wanted to try to get to her as well. To switch gears and go with the school system budget so that we can try to put everything together and advocate in all places simultaneously. Any other questions for Alderman Huntley? Thank you so much for joining us this evening. You've given us a lot to talk about and a lot to think about in terms of where we can best advocate, and you'll be hearing from us.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Looking forward to hearing from you. Bye.
Great. Thank you.
Bye,
Have
Harry.
a great night. 2 ships passing.
Hey, good to see you, Dr. Tobin.
Good to see you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I do have to jump off tonight, unfortunately, at 7. But thank you as always for inviting me. I know that most of you are up to date. I'm sure many have watched the workshop on the budget that we did on January 20th. If you haven't, please do. It's a sobering budget year that we're looking at, and as Jess was talking about, we could potentially face some unfortunate choices if we find ourselves under what we currently need. And Dr. Bedell has said that his priority, and I think I certainly agree with him, and I think my guess is most of my colleagues do on the board, that we want to put people before programs. We're doing our level best. You may have seen other districts in the state and actually around the country laying people off. We do not want to do that. And Dr. Bedell instituted a hiring freeze for the central office, not school buildings, but for the central office. But it's a tough year. And so we're going to be wrestling with, let me just say, it is written in statute that as board members, it's our job to ask for what we believe is needed, not just based on our asks on what we think we can get. But on the other hand, we have to be very strategic in that, so things that we don't ask for things that then force cuts in areas we don't want to see cut, if that makes sense. So I'm glad to spend these few minutes taking questions, and I also wanted to alert you all to a smaller thing that really has to do with advocacy at the federal level, but is something that I've become aware of over the last several years. One of the areas, of course, that we need more people are child psychologists throughout the school system. And what I've heard from a number of child psychologists who have reached out to me is that because of a law that is part of IDEA, which is obviously the federal funding for special education, we as school systems, we're responsible for the child find programs, right? Where the school systems have facilities, have staff to identify children who need some sort of special services. However, another part of that is that if a child is in a private school and it is deemed that that child needs an evaluation with a child psychologist, it has to be, the parents get to choose where it's done. It has to be done in a public school, and it's done usually in the area where the family lives. And our child psychs have been telling us they're taking a lot of their time to do these evaluations at no cost to the private school. And so I am interested in sort of adding to our federal advocacy list the notion that if a private school is involved in this, the private school should be contributing something to that. because it's taking our resources and time from our child psychologists, and it does seem that there should be some cost sharing in those cases. So I'm just throwing that out as sort of another advocacy on the federal level that I think many people aren't necessarily aware of. So should you run into Congresswoman Elfreth or anybody else that you might want to
Does
bend
that
their ear.
include the child fine for under 5, like infant and
Yes.
toddlers?
Yeah, that's part of that legislation. And we should, I mean, my interest here is not taking us out of this process. The public school, we should be the source for that, so to speak. But I'm just saying these are often what I'm just describing are obviously older children who have been in school. There's deemed to be a need for an evaluation, and that's how it works. And it, according to a number of child psychologists in our system who've reached out to me, and they discuss this with their colleagues, it takes up a lot of their time, and they're concerned about that. And obviously, they're also concerned that we need more child psychologists. They are stretched thin as it is. So that's really my concern, is getting something from the private schools that are involved in this to help support those resources that we need. So
having them fund a roving school psychologist who travels from private school to
Yes.
and thereby doesn't remove anything from the load, or doesn't add anything to the load of our school psychologists, or take resources away from students already enrolled.
Yeah. But it's a matter of tweaking the federal legislation in this case. It's not a state law. It's not because I've been digging into this for a while, because it's a source of frustration for me. So anyway, but otherwise we're going to be fighting tooth and nail for every penny that we can get. I'm hoping those of you on the commission and others will be at the budget town hall for District 6, because that is what has to happen. People have to advocate. And exactly what Jess was talking about, it may look like on some level, oh, well, if we're short funds and we have to slightly increase the walking distance, well, that's minimal impact on the school building. Well, it's ultimately a big impact on the school building because of the children who will be impacted. And overwhelmingly, you make changes like that, often the children most impacted already have more challenges. And so it's, these things have massive ripple effects. And I don't think any of the proposed cuts would be a good idea, but we're going to have to see where we land once the budget comes before us.
Jess, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so that was going to be my question, was I understand that a lot of work goes in on the numbers, budgetary side, et cetera, when these budgets are put together. How is the research and the fact finding done in terms of that, right? To say, okay, well, if we increase the, everything by a quarter of a mile, for example, this many more students are going to be walking. There's going to be this many more busy intersections that are going to require a crossing guard. There's going to be this many more streets that don't have sidewalks that are being asked to be, utilized. Who does that work, and how does that work? And I ask this because during the whole redistricting process, I was trying to find some information, and I'm now in an ongoing mediation with PIA, because the information that I was asking for, which seemed like it was information that anyone who is putting forth a redistricting proposal should have, right? Like, how many potential students live in an area that's being discussed for redistricting? The school system said they don't have that information, and they don't have access to that information. And so that makes me really concerned if we're doing proposals, whether it's for redistricting or for budgetary or whatever, and we're just making proposals without having facts and research behind them, because that's what the school system said. For example, I asked how many potential students live in this community that don't currently attend attend public school, but might potentially attend public school. And the school system's response is, we don't have that information. We have no idea. Well, in my mind, and just how could anyone make a proposal to move an area to a school if they don't know how many students might potentially attend that school, right? That's a basic fact and figure. And so how is that information found? And so same thing with the budget. If Dr. Bedell is saying, well, we might have to increase walking areas, who is doing the research to see what the impact of that is going to be on the students affected by that walking area and on the communities and on the infrastructure and everything else? Where does that information come from? Or are we just sort of picking ideas out of the air and hoping that they stick?
So generally, if something like that, if it gets to it and we're presented with several possibilities, right, and the night of the budget workshop, Matt Stansky had a list of things, right, that could be under consideration should we find ourselves in a position where we don't have sufficient funds for what we need to do. At that point, we would, as a board, ask for that information, just like we asked for the cost of various aspects of, amendments on the budget or whatever. With regard to the information you're talking about, Jess, during redistricting, there are formulas for predicting these things. There aren't necessarily exact. I mean, that you can look at a neighborhood and you can say, and I don't do this, the staff do this, but you can say, based on best practices in the business, so to speak, this is how we look at what the yield would be in this neighborhood. But that's not the same.
That's what I suggested, but the school system said that they did not have that information and they did not do that. So that's what I'm wondering. And, again, expanding it outside of the redistricting, because the school system said specifically, we don't have that information. We did not do that research. So when we're looking at it with budget or anything else, where is that coming from, right? How is that? I mean, I understand.
It depends on the information.
Budgetary thing.
Yeah, it depends on the information. The budgetary stuff comes from the financial group who reaches out. They deal
and
with
they're
whatever
reaching out to
departments.
transportation, and they're reaching out to the city and to the county and to and
all
doing
the usual, and then we ask the questions. That's how it works. But some of this is going to be more precise information than other information. And I guess that's what I was saying. But yeah, the impact's going to vary tremendously were we to do that. And again, nobody has said we will. This was just on a list of things that would be under consideration if we have to make cuts. The bottom line is that it would disparately impact different parts of the county in different ways. On the one hand, in Annapolis, you would have all the problems we usually have with some walking routes that aren't safe for kids, right? Whether it's the sidewalk issue or other things. On the other hand, in South County, they have a different kind of impact, right? They are already so spread out that if they add any more to their walking distance, it's even harder because there really aren't sidewalks in a lot of South County, right? So, whereas if you're up in Brooklyn Park, it's different. So, we would have to see how that played out throughout the county. And those are the questions we'd have to ask and get the best information we could. But yeah, those are the things that could be under consideration. None of that is the case right now. And I guess because unfortunately I do have to go, I just want to say to everyone, please, please, please advocate. Please get everybody you can think of. I mean, the Eastport community did an unbelievable job of coming out and advocating during redistricting. I hope they and other groups will be out at the town hall, will be writing to, county council folks, everybody, because this is exactly the kind of information the funders need to have. They need to understand that any cut we make is going to have massive implications, even if it looks on paper like something that's not immediately impacting the schools. It will impact students. And so we've made great strides over the last few years because we've had a county executive and a county council that has helped us catch up. But we are still 14th out of 23 school districts in this state that in terms of what we spend per student per year, as opposed to our being the fourth or fifth wealthiest county in the state. So
Before you take off, I have two really quick questions for you,
Mhm.
Joanna. First was the community schools funding is that part of that? Is that budget, or is that money that we're getting that is from the state that has to be used for that?
that is required funding by Blueprint, right?
Okay.
So if the county were not to fund that, the county would lose money.
Okay, great.
So that's built
So that's
into
kind of
Blueprint.
safe. All right. Second question was, they talked during the budget hearing, or the budget workshop, they were talking about the fact that we have more senior teachers at schools that have lower farms populations, so they get more dollars for teaching.
Yeah.
Seems to me that's exactly why we used to have those incentive bonuses that we used to offer to keep teachers at our. Has there been any discussion about perhaps bringing that program back to so that we can have more senior teachers in our farm schools and our community schools to reduce the turnover there and bring those experienced teachers?
Blueprint has that. If you
Okay.
are at a school that's designated as they don't use the word challenge now, but whatever the terminology, that's like a $7,000 bonus.
Okay.
So Blueprint has that built in.
Okay. So that
Um,
is built in to attract teachers to our
Yep.
community schools.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, that's an ongoing problem. And the biggest problem that we have right now with Blueprint is that the foundational funding is not enough. The basic funding is not enough. So if you're in a high farms, high multi-language learner, high special education school, you're getting a lot of money. If you have a very low population of those kids, you really don't have enough money. And they were talking about the fact that that's exacerbated by the fact that you often have these more senior teachers in those schools because it's
So-
costing you more for each teacher.
Right. And so that would also, talking about the class sizes and things too, that also sort of feeds into the redistricting decisions that were made
Mhm.
too, because we redistricted basically based on state recommended, the SRC numbers, but
Mhm.
those are not necessarily the same numbers that should be used for our Title I schools versus.
Oh, no. But we still abide by that. You don't want a Title I school much above the 80s percentage, right? So, and we took that into account. That's one of the reasons you weren't going to move the Gingerville people to Mills Parole, right? I mean,
Right, but if we're in a situation where we have to reduce staff, we will still be increasing class sizes
right,
in
yeah.
places that
Oh,
we
absolutely.
redistricted to try to reduce.
Absolutely. All
All
right.
right.
Thank you. I'm sorry I could only be with you for a short time. You all know where to find me if you have additional questions. And thank you as always for what you're doing. And stay warm, everyone.
Thank you, Joanna.
Okay, bye.
Have a good night. All right, so that was our very quick overview or discussion on both city and school system budgets. What do we want to tackle first as a commission? Since we covered both, do we want to continue talking about the school system budget because that is out? Has everyone had a chance to either watch the budget, the two meetings, the one in December where they presented the budget, and then the follow-up one where they went through the workshop last week where they went through basically the breakdown of what those numbers mean. And do we have things that folks want to discuss as a commission, places where we can advocate for? Crickets, very quiet.
I mean, as far as the county budget goes, reading over the revisions to the county budget, it seems like the investments are where they should be, right? More mental health staff, opening the early childhood education center, helping open New Village Academy, which we know is going to take pressure primarily off of Annapolis High, more funds for positions that support students with disabilities and early language learners, STEP and COLA for employees. You know, it's hard for me to find things where looking at the AACPS budget, I'm like, oh, they should have shifted the money around this way. And so I think our advocacy ought to be to the county council. And frankly, it's probably not just to Councilwoman Rodvian, who I think is going to, who I think is probably a lock to support this budget. So I think it might be a conversation with her about, or is there a swing vote? But I think the ask there is for the county to fully fund the budget, and if they are picking and choosing line items, to make sure that the student support positions, especially because I think we want one of those at Annapolis, are protected. With the city, I think there's a lot more that we could potentially do. Again, I think Harry pointed out to us that they did the thing last year of Parks and Rec came asking for money for something that was not as essential as more childcare slots, and they redirected that money to childcare, and I think we should be prepared to push on that again. I think we should pay attention to what the sidewalk and street upgrades are and whether they actually have bearing on, what is happening, where students are being asked to walk or maybe asked to walk. And then I'd be interested to see, I know the city has done funding for youth internships and summer jobs, and I would want to pay attention to see if that's preserved, and make sure we have that. So those are the things I'm thinking for both those budgets.
So I had a question about the Carver Early Education Center. Do we know where that is going to be?
That's in Crofton, I believe.
Crofton. Thank you. And then about what Alderman Huntley shared when he was talking about the Transportation Commission and people having talked about different transportation things elsewhere. Have we, as we all know, I've just been here for a few months. Have we before, or is there precedent for sort of working with other commissions or having some sort of work group to talk about advocacy that, works in tandem with each other? Because if they're talking about some of the same things that we're talking about, it could be a little more influential if we have kind of that unified approach to it.
There is a lot of overlap. I mean, obviously, Rec and Parks does things that are not related to the schools, but also does transportation. Obviously, is something else we've talked about a lot that overlaps. Both city transportation and city, county, school system, all of the above. So there are a lot of areas where there are overlap, and in areas where there are things that we are working on. Yes, it definitely behooves us to work, and often we don't meet full commission with full commission, but we will have like the transportation department is one where Jess is going to give us an update here in a little bit. We have talked individually and have attended different meetings to try to work on some of these issues that affect everybody in lots of ways.
Thank you.
One of the things that I took away was, the emphasis on people, not programs, meaning we shouldn't be holding our breath for anything to happen at Georgetown East in terms of any kind of magnet programs. But knowing that we do have a need for pre-K and that there is funding in place for pre-K expansion and other early childhood education, I think that it really would that would be a good place for us to advocate for, I think, to those members of the school system and say, hey, this is a school that is currently, the building is underutilized, but we have a great need within this local community for pre-K. If they don't have enough space at other areas, can we use Georgetown East for that? I know they're doing that. We have ECI there, and then we have the we got a Judy Center at Georgetown East, I believe. So continuing to advocate for using Georgetown East to address, I feel like our community in particular has a great need for additional pre-K support. So that could be something that we can advocate for. I had another thought that I've just lost. So anyone else? Thoughts? I mean, basically, it sounds like from, if you watched all the budget stuff, the budget is tight. They're asking for a lot and they're probably not going to get it. I thought the discussion on the the enrollment numbers, we had talked about the fact that enrollment was down and initially nobody seemed to know why. And they did actually have a pretty good discussion about that. They talked about both the fact that there was, the birth rates really dropped, around 2021. So now we're seeing the enrollments for our current kindergartners is dropped. They also talked about the fact, how immigration is currently down. So that's impacting our schools, that the housing, a lot of folks are moving out of state just in general, that we're losing because a lot of the housing costs are expensive and they're not turning over, folks are staying in their homes. So there aren't as many homes available for younger people who are starting families. But I thought that was very interesting. They said that the homeschool numbers, which climbed during the pandemic, have not really gone back down to pre-pandemic numbers, which is something that we sort of had guessed at. But I think that's an interesting, I know I see a lot of conversation, if you look on Facebook, a lot of people are talking about homeschooling. It feels like there's more people talking about it than in the past. So that's definitely impacting our schools as well. But the lower enrollments means that there's lower students. When you're looking at dollars per student means lower money. So that is going to impact the budget. I think we also want to advocate for both the additional personnel, the school counselors, school psychologists, social worker, pupil personnel worker. We were able to get enrollment numbers up to date from Bob Mosier sent to me earlier today. So we have current enrollment at Annapolis Middle is 779 students. Enrollment at Bates is 708 students. Each school has a full-time social worker. So that's a total of 1487 students, or an average load per social worker of 743 students per social worker. But all of those students matriculate up to the high school. Annapolis High School has 1,996 students and a single social worker. So that social worker's load is, nearly 3 times what the load is on the middle school social workers. So I think that is definitely something we want to advocate for and perhaps consider passing a motion this evening to that effect, to send to the school system. What else did I have? Oh, I had a question I wanted to ask Joanna. Follow up. Any other thoughts? Anyone else want to take a stab at a motion here, or do you want other discussion?
Sorry, can you clarify what you are saying when you say I want to make a motion to?
I would like to make a motion to the school system, to the school system, and possibly also the county as well, saying that we are in support of the budget and specifically funding for the 2 school counselors, the additional positions added of 2 school counselors, 1 school psychologist, 1 additional social worker, and 1 additional pupil personnel worker. Those were specifically spelled out in the budgets as additions. Places they were adding them. So I would like to tell the school system that we support all of those, and then also especially add about the numbers regarding Annapolis High School, that Annapolis High School still has only a single social worker.
Do you have a motion prepared?
No, I started writing one earlier, but I did not finish it. Hang on a second. See if I can.
I don't know what the specific numbers are and how they affect Annapolis schools, but I also think we should add these English language development positions.
Yeah, they're converting, adding 10 English language development positions and
then
converting
they're converting,
the 6
6
bilingual facilitators. Yes, I think
to
that
12
is.
months.
Yeah, I think those as well, because we do know, especially here in Annapolis, we have bilingual facilitators at definitely. I know there's most of our schools, but particularly the ones at Annapolis Middle, Tyler Heights, and having those as only 10-month positions makes it harder on families that are, say, trying to enroll students over the summer.
Yeah.
Jess, do you have anything that you wanted to add about that? I know we had talked about that before.
No, and I haven't had a chance to look through to see what's in there right now. I mean, obviously that's always a priority that we have to have. I think it's also a priority to have bilingual front offices. And I think that, in schools, particularly in our cluster where they've moved to have a bilingual front office, and put the budget for that has been really helpful. So that families can come in and speak with somebody. But I don't know how that plays into the funding, or I don't know if that's a motion that we want to pass. But I definitely think that if you have a motion that you want to put forward for the social workers, we might even have one from every single budget process in the last 100 years, saying the same thing. We could just redo it again.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I mean, can we sort of make a motion agreeing that this is the substance of what we're gonna write and then trust Laura to write it and submit it?
No, we have to have
actually see the
we have to
Yeah.
have the words. I'm looking through to see if I can find,
ready to judge.
because we literally have done this.
Well, I agree that we should do it, and I agree we should submit it not just to the school system, but to the county executive and all the members of the county council. And I agree with Samantha's +1, that we should call out the prioritization of the school mental health staff and the English language learner staff.
I found the motion on the county budget for funding the additional. Let me see.
Do we have new business? I was going to say if we could do something while Laura works on that, it shouldn't take long. She pretty much has it. And then present it to us. Do we have any new business? Does anybody?
I can do a motion right now, actually, if that works. The Annapolis Education Commission supports additional social worker positions, supports the inclusion of additional social worker positions at Annapolis High School and increased funding for mental health professionals. Hold on. Does that sort of speak to what?
And I think we also wanted to add in
I think we should do that as a different motion.
Yeah. Okay. So
I think that we do mental health and
then motion number 2 is
I like the fact, Laura, that we are voicing support for them. Usually we have to say, it's kind of opposed or something. So I kind of like that we're starting off with, yes, we support this budget.
All right, so that's what I have for this one. I'll read it in a second. And the motion number 2 is that we would like to voice our support for the budget. And then we can also say, but also support our support. Let's do the, what was that? For the 10 English and the conversion of 6
and to answer your question, Enid, I don't think I have any new business.
Do we want to do this as 2 or just we can throw this all together? I mean, do we have separate discussion for each of these, or do we feel like we just
I think we have to have separate discussion. Well, I don't know.
Anyone? All right. So I have it broken out. I think we could actually send it all in one because it's all in support of the budget. We could do it this way. We could do it this way. And just label it like that. So the Annapolis Education Commission would like to voice our support for the AACPS fiscal year 2027 budget. We particularly support the addition of 2 school counselors, 1 school psychologist, 1 social worker, and 1 pupil personnel worker. Annapolis Middle School has 779 students served by 1 social worker, or actually it has 779 students, and Bates Middle School has 708 students, each served by a full-time social worker. All of those students matriculate to Annapolis High School, where 1,996 students are served by a single social worker, a load that is nearly 3 times as high. It's heavy. Actually, sure. In addition, we would also like to request social worker be assigned to Annapolis High School. And then at the bottom of my head, and then after that, the Annapolis Education Commission would also like to voice our support for the 10 English language development positions and the conversion of 6 bilingual facilitator positions from 10-month to 12-month positions. Enid, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was just wondering, just the last part of that. So what, again, did I miss it? Why, the last part about moving from 10-month to 12-month positions when the kids are not in school? What is that, for summer programs or what?
Well, it's so that if a parent calls the school in the summertime with a question, there's someone there who can answer it. I mean, our schools, the community schools, particularly like Annapolis Middle School, and our other community schools do run summer programs for students. So like Tyler Heights has summer programs for kids, but there are no bilingual facilitators there in the summer because it's only a 10-month position. And if a parent wants to enroll a student, for example, over the summer, there's nobody there that can assist with that, because those are 10-month positions. So it basically, for the folks that are there who are bilingual, it increases that load on them tremendously because there is no bilingual facilitator there to handle those duties.
And Laura, it looks like there's 2 spaces in between the and the in the second to last line.
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
Yep.
I do not type well on demand. All right, so let me read this from the top, and then we can, see if there's any other discussion or vote. The Annapolis Education Commission would like to voice our support for the AACPS fiscal year 2027 budget. We particularly support the addition of 2 school counselors, 1 school psychologist, 1 social worker, and 1 pupil personnel worker. We would also like to request the social worker be assigned to Annapolis High School. Annapolis Middle School has 779 students, and Bates Middle School has 708 students, each served by a full-time social worker. All of those students matriculate to Annapolis High School, where 1,996 students are served by a single social worker, a load that is nearly 3 times as heavy. The Annapolis Education Commission would also like to voice our support for the 10 English language development positions and the conversion of 6 bilingual facilitator positions from 10-month to 12-month positions. All right. All right. Any other discussion, questions, concerns? We all want to run screaming away from budget season. All right.
We need Janet here. She was like the budget maven.
I know, but she was really good about that. I'm trying to do my best in her absence.
Maybe we can. No, I know, but I mean, it's hard for the chair to do that. Like, she took that on as like her thing and was great, which was really helpful.
She was really good at, yeah. And I feel like I'm still trying to struggle to figure out, like, I've spent a lot of time looking at the budget and the presentations and mostly I just come up with loads and loads of questions. So, all right. Can I have a second for the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Fish. All right. Any discussion? Any opposition? Do we want to do a roll call? Or is
If
there?
there's no opposition, then that's unanimous,
All
right?
right. Motion carries. There we go. More efficient use of time. All right. So that's good. Was there anything else in regard? I'm looking through this.
Do you want me to talk about transportation?
Yeah, that's anything else. I'm just looking with regard to budget. All right, let's wrap this up for now. I think we have our work cut out for us. We know what we need to do in terms of the city budget, so we will all have to sort of stay on top of those issues, and we will have much more discussion about that, I am sure, in the future. All right, so let me close this down, and actually let me stop sharing my screen. There we go. And all right, and then that was the next thing on our budget was on our agenda was transportation. So Jess, that's you.
So as you all know, the transportation issue, particularly the access to public transportation for our students, for all of our students, but especially the ones at Annapolis High School, has been a big issue of mine for a long time. And we've had countless go-arounds with various heads of departments and some really great meetings that led nowhere, and some really bad meetings that also led nowhere. But we had a meeting in, if you remember a couple months ago, Mark Morlock came to our meeting, and he is a parent of 2 students at Annapolis High School, and he is also particularly interested in the public transportation side and access and working to make some changes, which is great to have, some family members and some families and outside of the community, but outside of our commission involved. And so he set up a meeting in December and invited me, Mr. Marino, who is the community school program manager at Annapolis High School, and Phil Berger, who is an Annapolis High School parent, as well as a coach involved with a number of different sports. And then there were some other people that were invited, Mr. Godfrey from AHI as an AP, and some other people that weren't able to make it. But Mr. Marino, myself, Mr. Morlock, and Mr. Berger attended, as well did Mr. Marcus Moore, who's the director of transportation, Kwaku, who is the deputy director of transportation and who has spoken with the commission a number of times in his varying roles with transportation, and then Jamar Parker, who is the superintendent. And the general sort of goal of the meeting was just to get sort of a baseline as to where we are right now, right? So this is December 23rd. Mayor Littman has just come on board, and he even now is still in his 100 days. I think he just had his 50 days, so he's still on board, and he's still onboarding and drinking through a fire hose trying to get on board. And so what we wanted to do is kind of get an idea, where are we right now when it comes to the city, and with all the various options, with the idea that there are significant transportation gaps across the city of Annapolis, in Anne Arundel County, that limit access for AHI students, families, and staff. And those without vehicles face barriers to participating in after-school activities, whether it's sports, clubs, tutoring, drama productions, etc., parent meetings and school events, as well as workforce development. The transportation gaps really limit the ability of Annapolis residents who don't have access to personal transportation from being able to take some of the many jobs that are available at Annapolis High School, and really, participating with the high school, not necessarily as a parent, but as an employee, and etc. And so we basically, so we talked a lot about the different things. I have obviously been through this conversation a number of times. Everyone else was new to the conversation for the most part. So I sort of let them, I wanted to have them ask the questions, and which was really great because we got, just some here's where we are type things. I also want to say that I am super excited to have Mr. Marino for Annapolis High School to have a community schools program person, because in the past it's been hard. Each of the APs has their own things that they're busy with. Principal Whalen has her own things, and previous principals before her. Everyone has. So having Mr. Marino on board, because this speaks to a lot of what he is there to do, right? He is there to make sure that there is a community initiative and working together. And so it was really great to have him there. And I think, working with him going forward on all this is going to be fantastic. And even since this meeting, some other people have reached out to him about the same thing. And so he's put us in contact. So I think, I don't want to say I'm being optimistic. Maybe I'm being cautiously optimistic, only because we know how long this has been that we've had this conversation. And I'm tired of being optimistic about anything anymore these days. But basically, what the city has said, we've always had an issue with the city basically saying, sorry, it's not our problem. And as I talked about with Alderman Huntley, it's not just in transportation, it's across the board. It's not our problem. It's not our school system. There are federal laws that don't allow, that prohibit the city from taking over a part of transportation that the school system should be doing, et cetera, et cetera. And that came up a lot during our conversation. It's come up a lot in every conversation we have transportation. It's like, well, that's AACPS's issue. Well, no, these are city residents. So it's not an AACPS issue, because yes, in the morning, getting the kids on the bus, the one bus that comes through, and getting them to the school and getting them home at the end of the day, that is for sure an AACPS issue. That's their job. However, these kids live in the city, their families live in the city, and that is a city issue, right? Public transportation is a city issue. And, for those who I haven't spoken, but I come to this from the perspective of having, first of all, grown up in rural Pennsylvania, where everybody took a school bus. The school system provided a bus, regardless of whether you went to private school, public school. I went to public school for a while. I took the school bus. I took the same school bus when I moved to Catholic school. And, and so it's a very different thing. But then also there's no public transportation, and everyone relies on having a personal vehicle. If you don't have a personal vehicle, then you can't live there in rural Pennsylvania. And then I moved to Bethesda, and where we didn't have transportation for either my elementary school or my high school, which was in Georgetown. And we relied on public transportation a lot, and it was city public transportation. And the city worked with the schools, even though we were a private school. We got tokens every morning in high school. We got tokens every morning so that we could hop on and off the bus as we needed to, or hopping on and off the metro once we finally got to Georgetown, find a metro. And it was very easy. So in my mind, it should be much easier for residents of the city of Annapolis to hop on a bus and take it anywhere, for that matter, let alone take it to the high school. But it should certainly be easy for our residents to go to the high school, because it's our high school and it's our public high school. I talk a lot, because I'm the Ward 8 representative, about how from Eastport it takes an hour and a half right now to get to Annapolis High School, and a lot of walking if you try to take public transportation. But, for Ward 2, there isn't even a bus for most of Ward 2. There isn't access to public transportation if you live in West Annapolis, if you live, and we live in a city that is urban enough that there are a substantial amount of families. So anyway, that don't have access to private transportation. So what the key takeaways that came from the city is that Annapolis City Transit requires data before making changes. They cannot modify or expand routes and services without specific data on number of households without vehicles, student travel needs before and after school, key destination points, peak usage time. That data needs to come from AACPS transportation, parents and students, and school staff. The city also noticed the need to distinguish ACPS's responsibility for student transportation from the responsibilities of Anne Arundel County Transportation, Annapolis City Transit, and parents. Annapolis High School, as everyone knows, is in a weird spot because we're directly outside of the city line. So technically, we are supposed to be serviced by the county transportation. But again, the majority of the students that attend Annapolis High School are city residents. So the county isn't really worried about how people from Eastport are getting to Annapolis High School because Eastport people are city residents, not or from off of Bestgate or elsewhere within the city limits. So there's that. Then there is the transit development plan timeline. So the latest transit development plan was adopted in July of 2025. We missed a big window there. The next one is 2030. Only small adjustments are possible between plan cycles, but again, this is a big issue when we're talking about budgets, when we're talking about what the possibilities are, like we were talking with Alderman Huntley earlier, is why wasn't the Education Commission brought, since this had been an ongoing discussion, it's not like it was a surprise, brought in more permanently, and why isn't that being, hey, I don't see anything in here about Annapolis High School, and I know that's been an ongoing discussion for the last 7 years. So why isn't this part of the transportation development plan? That kind of conversation needs to start happening more and more often. It's a larger conversation. There is a pilot for an on-demand service. Summer 2027 is the earliest opportunity for expanding or modifying that pilot in a way that might service AHI. However, again, AHI is outside of the city, so that makes it a little bit difficult for that, but there are possibilities there.
Yeah, the Annapolis
and
Go
then-
Time only says that you can, it will only let you use it between like 7 and 10 p.m. So not really
I
useful.
think you
for
can use it for approximately 37 minutes in 12 feet of space. That's exactly what's happening. The idea is fantastic. I really love the idea of the Go Time. I have taken the Go Time. The execution, I feel personally, could use a little bit of help. I would like to be able to use the Go Time more often. But anyway. And then city council support is critical. Transit leadership stated that changes require city council direction and budget allocation. So that is something I think that we have not had in the past. I know that the alderman in Eastport prior to this year was just never a priority, no matter how many times we talked about it. I think that our new alderman in Eastport, I think our new alderman in Ward 6, I think the existing alderman in Ward 7, obviously Alderman Huntley. I think that I think we have a better, and especially our mayor, I think we have a better chance with council now than we did previously about getting this going, because they understand how important public transportation can be to making things better for the city in a number of different ways. So our next action steps are engaging AACPS transportation to look at some cluster route options, some different things, launching an AHI-wide transportation survey which Mr. Marino is going to be helping with, and we're going to be working together on that. Exploring some federal funding opportunities. Mark has a huge background in that side of things. And there's some money that it looks like we're not getting that we should be getting because of our free and reduced meals, because of our military families, some Department of Transportation money. So he has a lot of information. He's been putting out a lot of feelers, getting that information and seeing, what kind of budgetary information that we can get either for the school system or for the city to work with the school system, et cetera. Engaging local faith leaders to build wider community backing, updating local political leadership, including the council, and then attending, more Board of Ed and City Council meetings to advocate once we get a little bit more information. So I will say that in the beginning of the meeting, there was a lot of, look, there's not much we can do in, very unfortunately typical for Annapolis sometimes, sort of, there's not much we can do. It is what it is. And by the end of the meeting, I was much more cautiously optimistic that there is an understanding that if we can get some basic, not basic information, but some detailed information and put things forward, they understand that there is a strong need for this. It's not just Janet and I meeting and saying we really need this. It is an overall, okay, this is really neat. And so that is my basic summary. Does anyone have any questions about it? And what I would like to do is to know who on the council would like to be, who on the council, who on the commission would like to be on the conversation of transportation going forward, because we're gonna, continue having this. And if everyone's okay with it, I, would like to lead like basically a small committee of transportation, commission members to work on this going forward, and so that we can try to, coordinate and combine efforts and, report back once a month. And hopefully, before my youngest child graduates from high school, he might be able to take a bus there.
Jess,
Oh,
Pam, I think we're about to say the same thing.
Yes,
Jess,
go ahead.
I'd be happy to help.
Speak for both of us.
I'm chatting with some people from the Transportation Commission and lobbying some city council people, and it sounds like there's a little bit of movement, which is a little more than what we had before, from what you're saying. So that's good.
Yep. Me too, Jess. Yep, and Pam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Get it done. Let's have buses
Anybody
go where
else?
the people go.
Okay.
Yeah, this is definitely.
Does
an
anyone
issue.
have any questions or have any feedback that you'd like to give me, or personal experiences? We can either talk about it now, or you can email me. Everyone has my email, I think.
I'm tired of people suggesting that go time is an option when go time is very much not an option.
Right.
If I wanted
yes,
to
go ahead.
look at the transit development plan, would I find that on like the city's
It's on the city
website?
website.
Okay.
If you go to annapolis.gov,
Okay.
I can. Hold on, let me see. I'll put it.
Yeah, if you just Google Annapolis Transit Development Plan.
Okay.
It's right here. So if you go into the government department and offices transportation, so if you go into transportation, it's on the left side over here, Annapolis Transit Development Plan. I will also say that Will Rowell has been really helpful in the conversation. He is focused on micro. Say that earlier. He's bike, pedestrian, and a micromobility coordinator, because that's obviously part of it as well, right? It's not only about getting the bus there, but also, are you guys seeing the screen coming up, the PDF opening? But also making sure that pedestrians, I know, we have an alderman whose child goes to Annapolis High School, and the alderman would love their child to be able to take the bus. Ride their bike to school. The alderman would like to ride their bike to school. It is not really a feasible option right now. So, but I do recommend everybody read through the TDP, because I think it's really interesting and important to look at. If you have specific experience riding Annapolis Transit, either as a student or as a parent of a student, or just in general, please, like, that will help us sort of figure things out. I remember a couple years ago, we had a liveaboard family that was at Eastport for a year, and they didn't have a car. They only had bikes and liveaboard, and they had come here by boat from Europe. And they put their son in a program. They were in 4th grade at at Maryland Hall, and their son was friends with my son. And so they got in the program together, and they rode the bus every day. And it was like, what? You could take the bus to Maryland Hall from Eastport Elementary. That's crazy. Why didn't I think of that? Like, why am I not putting my kids, again, because I grew up in the city and I used to ride the bus all the time when I was growing up. And so, I think that identifying those things. We talk a lot about it at Annapolis Middle School. There's a bus stop right in front of the thing. If you miss the bus in the morning, you're going to Annapolis Middle School, we should be sending that information out to the families at Annapolis Middle School. Hey, you've missed the bus. This is how you can get on. And also it's free because you're a middle school student. You know, how to let our families know that information.
That's something that we should be pushing out to the community schools program manager. I mean, Amy should be pushing
Yes.
that information out in the Dragon Digest and in other avenues to make sure that that information gets out to families.
Yeah, how to take a bus. That's a great.
And actually, similarly, the social worker
at all the schools, to be honest. I mean, I
Yeah,
know that there are kids at Eastport
Be-
who take the
be-
bus in the morning that are within the walking area, and so they hop on the local bus to get to school. You know, and so that's a great thing. And actually, I'll talk to Jaren about that too. Okay, so what about any other
Well,
questions?
you answered the one question I had, that, and that it is still free for students in the city to take to ride the bus.
Yes, but it's only, I think, from a, hold on. I don't want to say it off the top of my head because I can't be. I've had my children home for approximately 700 days of the first 700 days of January. So during school months, students K through 12 who live within the city of Annapolis ride free on weekdays, ride free during school months. And then all other students who live outside the city but within the transit area, and a student with a valid school issued can ride for one-half the regular fare on regular bus for a one-way trip. Student fares are applicable on weekdays, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. That includes parochial, private, public schools, and colleges, including the Naval Academy. That doesn't really. I thought that there was a thing like I meant to look that up because I thought there was something about how it's like only during certain hours, which, oh yeah, so students are free from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., which is also something that we should be talking about because 6 p.m. is not late enough. It needs to be later.
And for a kid who's like doing a sports practice or a game or something, if they were trying to get home, like if somebody's doing middle school sports, for example, and trying to get home after a soccer game, they could conceive like middle school doesn't even get out until 4 o'clock. So
yes, it's a whole nother conversation. I do want to say, so anyways, yeah, so that's in terms of transportation. And then there are passes. So anyone else have any questions or thoughts they want to share? Otherwise, I will send an email out to everybody, to Fish and Pam and Laura. I don't know, Alderman Smith Brown, if you have any thoughts that you want to share as you listen to me talk about it.
Sure. Well, I'll just say tonight I was definitely observing, appreciate the acknowledgement and the calling out. When you listed or were naming older persons, I think you should be very clear as well when you're talking about supporting things that it's beyond just what you said. You know, there are many people that are on this council that have visions and see things differently than what was before, but we're all different, and those perspectives I think will really be valuable as we make decisions on behalf of our residents. And so you can count on me to always be here for our families, our children, our residents, especially in the city of Annapolis, as well as holding accountable those who are meant to serve for the betterment of all of us. And so, as I heard tonight, that's you all. I mean, and your work as volunteers is extremely appreciated, and we thank you for that. More voices are necessary, so continue to share that. More input from the community is necessary. You all are the arm, the grassroots, our boards, our commissions. We need them. And so I do want to emphasize that I'll be here. Let me know if there are any questions that you have, any thoughts as the liaison. on behalf of the City Council, honored to have been appointed by our Mayor, Jared Littman, and I will continue to make sure that in my capacity as an educator and all that I do is always going to benefit us. So thanks for tonight. I was listening and I appreciate the time. Blessing to everyone.
Thank
Be
you
safe.
very much.
Yeah, we thank you. We thank you for your support, and definitely appreciate any input or guidance. I know this. Sorry, I'm a little chaotic at running meetings. I'm trying to get better. But if you have other feedback for us regarding things like the budget cycle, that I hope that you will make us aware of what we need to know in order to advocate effectively. And if there are things that you see in the discussion in the council that that you want to that we should be aware of, bring them to our attention, please. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about that.
Yeah, I will say that is something that was really missed, that has really been missing. You know, there are so many times where, you know, even something like the legislative breakfast that happened recently with the city and the legislation, and AACPS, like those are the types of things that our chair and co-chair should be invited to, you know, please make sure that you're letting us know what we have been missing for a number of years has been that sort of conversation from, you know, hey, this is coming up. This is going to affect youth who attend school in our community, because we are the Education Commission. We're for the whole of the youth, right? Not just public schools. And we are supposed to be the liaison for the city to and from. So please, I do, you know, that we really could use, you know, a representative on the council who says, hey, you know, I think that this legislation should be brought to the Education Commission, or this conversation, and don't forget to invite the Education Commission to this meeting that has been set up, or, you know, that type of thing. There have been so many times where we found out after the fact about meetings between the superintendent and the council, or the superintendent and the mayor's office, or, you know, those type of things. And we can't do our job if we're not a part of the conversation. So.
Yes, I also will emphasize, I know Harry was here for the Finance Committee, and I wasn't really, I would have loved to serve Bernard to serve on the Finance Committee as well, though I think serving in the capacity of our conversations, I've emphasized the need for us to invest in our infrastructure. When you mentioned infrastructure, that's exactly what I put out there, including crosswalks, pedestrian safety. So that's lighting, especially on Chicken Round Road or in my ward for Walter S. Mills Pro Elementary School. I talked about internships, mentorships, apprenticeships, stewardships, fellowships, scholarships. I talked about extracurricular activities like the after school programs, the summer programs, and that does include the aftercare, recreation. So I know the vice chair did speak earlier today about making sure that the money is not going to necessarily to just renovations, but more so to the community recreation centers for the opportunities that we have for our children, for parks, for outside opportunities as well. So I did emphasize that. I will continue to emphasize that. And yes, I agree with what you shared, and I will be that person. And I expect you all to be that person for me, those people for me. You know, if there's something that's going on that you'd like for me to be a part of, or any other things that you think that I should advocate for, I will absolutely be that voice. But the strongest and the most powerful piece is us as a community coming together for the better. So.
100%.
Absolutely.
I did want to
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman.
Yes.
I really appreciate that. I did want to show this one thing. This is the Autolus households population as part of the transit the transit survey that the transit, whatever the word is, I can't think of right now. But what's important to note about this is that most of these surveys were done from the ridership. So this survey was not done from the larger population of Annapolis, which is one of the things that we identified sort of as a shortcoming when this plan was put together, because most of the surveying was done for the existing ridership as opposed to the whole city of Annapolis. So you're missing that. But I think in terms of so that's one of the reasons that we need to do a survey ourselves and get that information from them, because we need to kind of get more information. But anyway, I thought this was really interesting just for everyone to look at, even with the ridership in terms of these are Autolus household populations, the darker the color, the higher the population of autoless households. So you can really see how important transit is for a large portion of the city of Annapolis. So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Odessa,
Oh.
you have your hand up.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I'm late. How's everybody doing with this ice storm? Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
But tell me, Jess or Laura, what was the reason why the enrollment went down at Annapolis High School?
They had a really interesting discussion about it as part of the budget workshop, and they gave a whole bunch of reasons. Basically, there was a big drop in the birth rate 5 years ago, so that is impacting the drop in kindergartners now. But they said also homeschooling numbers have gone up. They expected them to drop. All the forecasts sort of dropped when they did the long range forecasts. They dropped them back to pre-pandemic levels, but in reality, that hasn't happened. Immigration rate is down for obvious reasons. And just in general, Maryland is losing population. People are moving to other states with lower cost of living. And the housing in Annapolis or in Anne Arundel County is typically fairly expensive. And older people in Anne Arundel County are staying in their homes longer. So those houses aren't turning over to younger families, families with younger kids. So they did have some good reasons for what was going on, but specifically Annapolis High, I mean, that's across the whole school system.
But there's so much development going on in Annapolis. You would think that
Yeah, but the development that's
enrollment-
going on all over Annapolis is like, there are all these high rises with really, really expensive units, and they aren't necessarily going to produce school age kids. High rise condos are going to attract, they're, professional couples, people in their, 30s or whatever that can afford, first of all, they're really expensive properties, but they're not necessarily the sorts of places where a family with, multiple kids is going to move.
Makes sense.
It sort of benefited us because at least it kept Apex at a high. So at the moment I'm not really going to I don't want to argue about it. I'm sort of glad because it does relieve some of the stress on the building. And if you saw in the long range facilities master plan, aside from I think we're getting some chillers for our HVAC. Annapolis High is not really on the list anytime soon. So it is good that we are not that our population is not growing at a super high rate because the odds of us having money or them finding money to do anything to enlarge or replace Annapolis High is fairly slim.
But all this development that's going on in Annapolis, you say it benefits us financially?
No, it doesn't really benefit us financially. It'll benefit the city financially because the real estate, the value of the real estate goes up, so real estate taxes, but it doesn't really benefit the schools. But it also doesn't really hurt us because a lot of the development isn't really bringing in families with school age children, so it's sort of a net zero for us. Although if they have more real estate funds, so they could spend more on transportation, and so we can do it that we can use the money.
Okay.
They did talk about, I know one of the things you talk about a lot is chronic absenteeism, and they talked about how the rate is dropping. I mean, it's not low, but it is definitely been improving over the past couple of years. That's one of the things that they've spent some money on, and they talked specifically in the budget. I thought of you, Odessa, as they were talking about it, that they have spent money trying to target chronic absenteeism, and the rates are going down, although they are not, at zero yet. So we will have to find out some more about what they're doing at the local schools, at our middle schools and high schools, to find out what specifically what they're doing this year. I know they've had some different groups with some different incentives that have come through, but we'll have to find out more about what exactly they're working on this year. All right. One last call for, does anyone else have any questions, thoughts, concerns about transportation? So we can wrap that up. Or about the budget discussions in general. We had Josh, I think, was there anyone come on board for public testimony?
It's just those two names, Madam Chair, Linda Sims and Regina Brown, if you want to bring them
Yeah,
forward.
if you'd like to promote them, and if either of them have public testimony that they'd like to give, we'd like to hear it.
Alrighty.
Thanks. And does anyone else have any new business while we're waiting for them to come online? I know
I don't have new.
But
sorry, I don't have new business. I was just going to remind everybody that for those of you who don't have kids in the school system, tomorrow and Friday are both going to be virtual learning days. So if you know people in the school system, if it's the first time we've been virtual this year with the new right? Isn't it? It is virtual this year with the new learning system and everything else. So there's bound to be a lot of questions and confusions. So, reach out to your communities and try to help. The schedules are all online. The school system put up a website, a web page on their website that is accessible from the main page. That's like ACPS Connect. And it has a lot of information about the schedules and everything else. Families or students should have been sent home with some sort of packets from especially the elementary school level for those who can't get online. And then also just a reminder, it's too late for tomorrow and Friday, but if you have students today, if you know students at A High, that the 10th and 11th graders got new laptops and should have gotten them during their English class, I think is how it was being delivered. All students should have it. We're going 1-to-1 for Annapolis High School. So please check in with your community and make sure that those students have picked up their laptops. This is an initiative to help the students be more college ready because the Chromebooks that they were using are great for younger years, but not really stand up enough for what they need to prepare to go into college and to the workforce. So.
Indeed. All right, and I think Enid did send out some information about a scholarship. Enid, do you want to talk about it, and then I can just forward your email out to the group at large?
Oh, is there any way I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, yeah, I can bring it up.
Annapolis, Anne Arundel County Delta Sigma Theta sorority is presently has 3 types of scholarships. I think the one most appropriate for this commission would be, what is it called? Help me out, Laura. I don't have it in front of me.
I know. I brought it up, but it was the wrong message. So hang on.
Okay. Excellence in Education Scholarship, and that's anybody interested. Laura will send out how they can get an application, but we really want people to hear about this and to apply.
Is there any particular group that this is limited to, or this is open to everybody?
Yeah, I have it on. I sent all the eligibility requirements to you.
Okay.
Which I thought you would, yeah.
Yeah, no, I had it up. My computer rebooted for me, and so everything that I had cleverly left open closed. So give me. I know you sent it to me, and I know I read it, and now I am not finding it. Enid.
Okay, I have it. I pulled it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's called the Outstanding Scholar Award. And they have to be a resident of Anne Arundel County, of course, and attend high school in the county. Be a graduating senior, and they have to have a 3.0 GPA. The rest of it is on there. So when you put it out there, they can all see it, but we hope to have a lot of students apply.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, those Miss Linda and Miss Regina both denied to be promoted, so I don't think they're going to speak.
Okay. All right. Thank you for letting us know. I just wanted to make sure that anybody who wanted an opportunity had it. And if they are listening, and you had other thoughts you want to, or anyone else who was watching us on YouTube, has thoughts that they would like to share with us, feel free to email us at I think we are, hang on, I said it's Annapolis Ed Commission, Annapolis Education Commission at gmail.com is our correct email address. So feel free to send any thoughts, questions, public testimony to us directly, and we will share it at our next meeting, which is, oops, did I hear somebody's hand go up? Our next meeting will be February 25th, Wednesday, the 25th, at 6:00 p.m. All right. Anybody else have questions, thoughts, concerns? Anything you want to share with the group? All right.
So not a question. I did have something to share. Fellows Family Fund, Fellow used to be the ARC of Central Chesapeake. Their Family Fund applications open on February 1st. So Laura, if I could, when that opens, share the link with you so you can share with
Yes,
others.
please. Please do.
And that's open for families with a child with a disability age 21 years or younger. And that can be, a grant can be up to $2,000 and can go towards anything from like specialized speech therapy to music lessons. So it says that it covers life enriching activities that insurance doesn't typically cover. So the application runs from February 1st to February 21st. Yes. And that's
Wonderful.
families in Anne Arundel County and then the Eastern Shore. So Caroline, Dorchester, Kent, Talbot, and Queen Anne's.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing
And
that with us.
Samantha, that reminds me that I have been attending some of the community foundation meetings that they've been having. They're great if you guys are involved in nonprofits or anything, but the community foundation has Anne Arundel Community Foundation has a similar type of grant, but for teachers. And I think it's up to $600 for teachers for various programs. So I will send that information to you, Laura, so we can get the word out and hopefully share it among our schools. So yeah. And I also had something that I wanted. Oh, I just wanted to say, with the snow and the ice and the snow ice and all the other things that have been going on, I just hope everybody can spread the word within your communities that virtual and all the snow days and everything can be really difficult. And, everyone understands that. For those who don't know, the reason we're going virtual tomorrow and Friday is because we've used up our 3 snow days for the year, our weather days for the year this year. So if we had snow days tomorrow and Friday, then we would have to start taking from the end of the school year. And also, if we have another weather day, we would also have to start taking from the end of the school year. So this is sort of a way to try to mitigate our school year going into July, because we had 3 school days. But also to remember that our county is a very big county. And we have everything from very rural to very urban in our county, and stretches a wide swath from north to south. This storm in particular, with the snow followed by the ice, was really dangerous. And even within the city, I drove before this meeting down Gemini, which is a major bus route for AHI and Annapolis Middle. And Gemini looks like it hasn't been plowed at all. It's a very hard storm to get in front of and to get cleared, whether you're in the city or in the county or on the state roads. And there's a lot, that goes on here. So I hope that everybody can remember that, can take a breath, can remember everybody's doing the very best that they can to get our kids back in school, but to get them there safely. We have a lot of walkers in the city of Annapolis who, wouldn't be able to, even if they wanted to, walk to school right now. But just, keep that in mind. And if you, read online or you hear people complaining about it or upset about it, it is 100% a difficult thing when you are a working parent and you have your kids at home and they're home forever and they've just had another break a week ago. But the school system is doing everything they can to get us back to school safely, as quickly as possible. And so just give everybody grace.
So Laura, Has the school population in Anne Arundel County dropped too?
Yes, the countywide, we are down 771 students, 71 or 79, but we are down over almost 800 students countywide. Montgomery County is down about 2,000 students, so it is across the board. It is, they said at the budget meeting, they basically said it is statewide and I believe even nationwide, due to both the dip in birth rates, and in particular in this area, due to a decrease in immigrant populations.
And birth rates. You say
Yeah.
birth rates.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's for the incoming kindergarten class. But if you go back and look, the birth rate kind of goes up and down. And so if you go back to whatever, like our high school students would be between 15, 14 and 18. So if you go back 14 to 18 years and look at the birth rate there, we expect certain dips, but this was they said was they specifically said that homeschool numbers have remained what they were during the pandemic, which was not what the forecast said. The forecast said that homeschool rates would peak during the pandemic, but then would go back to pre-pandemic rates, and they have not seen that. So I think between the drop in immigrant communities and homeschooling, that would explain a lot of what we're seeing at the high school level.
So I guess maybe at the next meeting, what are the pluses? I heard on the news today that I think 1% the graduation rate went down among the Hispanics. But
Well, if you
it
watch the
increased.
budget meeting, I sent the links. It's on YouTube. I sent the links out with the meeting agenda. There are a lot of things that are going well, and they were very quick to point out that things like that absenteeism is dropping, graduation rates are up. Most of our school groups have seen improvements in various areas and by various metrics. So overall, the school system is doing better, but so there are a lot of things that are going well, I should say. So if you want to watch I think the budget workshop in particular was very, very interesting. Both the budget presentation and the budget workshop were interesting, and they talked pretty frankly about sort of the state of the union in terms of the school system. Things that are going well and things that things that are going well that they want to continue to see improvements in. It's a pretty large ship, so it's not going to turn on a dime, but things have over the past 4 years, there have been a lot of areas where we've seen pretty big improvements. And so the goal with this budget was to specifically to capitalize and keep improving in those areas. Rocio?
But
sorry.
yes, statewide, I think I heard that it's a deficit, right? Of 50
For the budget?
50 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
statewide.
Statewide.
They were very clear up front. It's a pretty austere budget year across the board. At the state level in particular, it's very tight this year, and it's forecast to be worse for next year. And part of that is because of the blueprint, throws a lot of sort of mandatory areas where funding is required. And the question I asked Joanna is that the money comes from blueprint and the money that comes from the state for these things has to be spent on those things. So it is required spending that they are required to give us the money, and we are required to spend it that way, but they may not have the money going forward. So it'll be interesting to watch what happens at the state level. And then of course there's a lot of uncertainty because we don't know how much money we're getting from the federal government either.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Rocio, I'm sorry.
All good. Thank you so much. 2 things. There's also a Chesapeake Arts Center scholarship for students 5 to 18. I'm going to be sharing that on an email with you as well, so you'll help us spread the word. The other question was Wednesday, March 25th, the meeting on March is on Maryland Day. we still going to have that meeting?
Oh, good question. Yes, we are scheduled. The following week is spring break. So I was all happy because I thought it didn't conflict with anything. So I guess we need to maybe do a quick survey of folks who are able or not able to attend that day. Is there anybody who knows for a fact they cannot make the meeting on that day?
Well, should we ask the studio first if they are able to help us at all? I don't know if they will take that holiday as well. People
Oh,
from
that's
studio. Josh.
that's a good question. Josh, do you know if that is a day off? Like, is that a day when you are still able to facilitate a meeting?
Which day is that? I'm sorry.
March 25th.
Maryland Day.
You mean
It says city holiday. We do have stuff already projected on our calendar for that day. Usually city holiday meetings are canceled, but I mean, we can facilitate them. You know, if they're remote like this, it's no issue, but it would have to be run through Mark Hildebrand,
Okay.
first and foremost. But yeah, it's definitely possible, I think.
All right. Okay, I will ask Mark if that's still possible or if we need to reschedule. Does anyone else have strong feelings either way? I know rescheduling always gets to be really hairy because we are limited by not just when the city can do it, but also like we don't like to conflict with school board meetings. So it
That's
makes
approximately 7 months away, so I cannot weigh in on that conversation.
I know. Those of us with kids who are home from school are just trying to get through the next like 48 hours. And anyone who is a teacher who is teaching and has to be doing virtual teaching tomorrow, Godspeed. May the force be with you. All right. Okay. We are after overtime. So any last thoughts from anyone? No. Thank you all. As always, you are all terrific. Oops, I have both Enid. Okay, Enid, go.
No, I was just going to wait until you finish to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. But you finish your point. Finish your point.
All right. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? No. Okay. All right. Thank you all. As always, I appreciate you and all of your efforts on behalf of public education in Annapolis, in the Annapolis cluster. If you need anything from us, you know where to find us, Annapolis Education Commission @gmail.com. Thank you all. I will forward, everybody is sending me all of your announcements and I will forward them out to the group. So thank you all for everything that you do and stay warm because it's crazy cold out there.
Well, I'd say you must be down in the Bahamas somewhere. You got palm trees and everything.
That's why I was like, I'm going to use this as a backdrop today because it just makes me feel warm. Every time I look out the window, I just started feeling cold. So I just wanted something that was going to make me feel warm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like it's warm there.
If we think warm thoughts, the temperature will go up, right? Don't tell me about the forecast for this weekend. I do not want to hear it. I am living in denial.
Okay. Everybody stay safe.
Yes, everybody stay safe, please. Thank you all. Take care, stay warm, stay safe, and we'll be in touch.